Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we'll be responding to a recent video which was uploaded by Professor Dave concerning religion and the concept of meaning. And I found it worthy of a response, not because I want to attack him personally or anything, not at all. I got nothing against him really, but because the ideas that he presents reflect a much broader mindset that shapes the modern world. And he raises some points which would definitely resonate with a lot of people, but there are also assumptions and some blind spots and some inconsistencies in his argument that deserve to be examined carefully. So this isn't about looking for an argument. It's about addressing a whole way of thinking, a view on meaning, on fulfillment, on religion, and the role of belief in our modern society. So we'll look at these points, at these statements, and address them point by point, inshallah.
There are plenty of outlets to derive meaning. I derive meaning from my work, and I derive meaning from art, and I derive meaning from my family, and I derive meaning from a lot of different ways, and I feel fulfilled as a person and complete as a person. And everybody can we all want to feel that way, and we all have license to seek that feeling in whatever way we choose. And if you choose a religion, I think that's totally fine.
Now, when Professor Dave he talks about deriving meaning from art, from family, and from other personal interests, now he's describing a form of meaning that is completely valid. The emotional and psychological fulfillment that enriches everyday life. Everybody wants to feel that way, and there's nothing controversial about it. But the problem starts when this is being treated as the complete definition of meaning. If one assumes that because these things make a person feel comfortable or complete, that therefore these things are sufficient to account for what meaning itself actually is, then that's problematic. So what happens here is that Professor Day focuses only on the surface layer of human experience, things that make life pleasant, while overlooking the deeper, more fundamental layer of what meaning has historically always been has been referred to in philosophy, in religion, in existential thought. So the point to make is that there's a difference between feeling fulfilled and the feeling of purpose in life. Now, art, hobbies, family, a career, now that can give someone a sense of fulfillment, but they do not address the core human questions. What's the purpose of life? What's the objective basis of morality? Why is there something rather than nothing? What happens after we die? Is there a creator who designed us and gave us responsibilities? These are questions connected to the deeper and more fundamental concept of meaning. Now, the kind of meaning that Professor Dave is talking about is how to feel good whilst we are alive. It does not answer why we are alive at all and what that means to us as humans and how to get some sense of existential purpose in your life. Now, a person can feel fulfilled doing something which is that's completely untrue, that's completely false. Moreover, a person can feel emotionally and psychologically fulfilled doing something which is actually morally wrong, even. So, emotional satisfaction is not a reliable indicator of truth or purpose. So, meaning in the deep existential sense has always been about reality, about purpose, about truth, not just about feeling comfortable or happy. So when Professor Dave defines meaning purely in terms of psychological fulfillment, he unintentionally reduces it to a lifestyle preference more than a question of purpose and truth.
And if you choose a religion, I think that's totally fine. And I think, I'm not religious, and I don't like religions. But if you like yours and you go to a church and you have a sense of community and you like to pray and you like to, whatever rituals are a part of your religion, that's all fine. That doesn't bother me. It's when these beliefs and practices infringe upon the rights of others or make assertions about the nature of physical reality that are indefensible. That's where you begin to cross the line.
Now, here he's saying that he objects to religion when beliefs infringe on the rights of others, or when they make claims about physical reality. Now, that sounds neutral on the surface, but that isn't neutral at all. It comes directly from a liberal moral framework. So, and moreover, he presents that framework as if it was simply universal common sense. So, his position is not that no worldview should have authority. His position is that the modern worldview should have authority and religion should not. Now, because when someone says you can believe whatever you want as long as you don't violate rights, we have to ask, who defines what rights are? Who decides when they are violated? Who gets to draw the boundary? Who gets to draw the boundary between acceptable and unacceptable beliefs? Now, those questions are not answered. This is often the case. These questions are not answered because the assumption is that the answer is obvious. The assumption is that the secular liberal framework is so rational, so self evidently correct that it doesn't even need to justify itself. It gets to act as the referee. And that is the structure of liberal ideology. It does not see itself as one belief system among many. It sees itself as the default setting, if you will, the default setting of reason. It doesn't view itself as an authority, even while it exercises authority. And religion asserting truth, that is being treated as a threat. But liberalism asserting truth is treated as some kind of neutrality, as neutral ground. So the real philosophical tension here is it's not religion versus freedom. It's not religion versus reason. It's religion asserting truth versus liberalism asserting truth, while it's pretending that it's actually not doing so. So Professor Dave, he's not objecting to moral authority. He's objecting to a competing moral authority. And that position only makes sense if you've already accepted for yourself that your own worldview, your own liberal worldview, has some kind of unquestionable entitlement to set the rules for everyone else. But that entitlement, for it to be truthful, has to be objectively grounded and justified instead of just simply being assumed.
It's when these beliefs and practices infringe upon the rights of others or make assertions about the nature of physical reality that are indefensible. That's where you begin to cross the line, because you're influencing the people around you. And obviously I could talk all day long about Christian evangelicals, and the utter damage and destruction that they cause to young impressionable minds.
When Professor David talks about religious ideologies influencing people and causing some kind of harm or destruction, it is implied here that religion indoctrinates people while the modern Western worldview does not. But that's not how human societies work. There is no such thing as a community without influence. Whether it's raising children, whether it's educating citizens, it always involves transmitting beliefs, transmitting ideas, transmitting assumptions. Now, you can call that parenting, you can call that socialization, you can call that education, you can call it indoctrination. The labels might change, but the mechanism is the same. And the idea that religion shapes people and that could be harmful, while secular liberalism somehow doesn't, that's just not a serious argument. Secular liberalism also forms people's way of thinking, their identity, their ethics, and their a sense of what is acceptable. It does so through education, through laws, through entertainment, through social pressure, and it influences young minds every bit as much as religion does. And here's the crucial point: liberalism often cannot see itself doing so because it interprets its influence as liberating, as progressive, as neutral. And when it spreads, it doesn't think of itself as a force which is shaping people, which is indoctrinating people. It thinks of itself as a force which is freeing people, actually. It's freeing people from being indoctrinated. It doesn't think of itself as an authority or as an ideology which is replacing one authority for another, for its own authority. It thinks it's removing authority altogether, but actually is merely replacing one authority for its own. And that's why secular liberalism perceives its own values not as an ideology, but as common sense. It sees itself as something which is just normal, which is neutral, and which represents common sense. So often, when people warn about religious ideas influencing people, they aren't objecting to de-influencing of people in general, but they are objecting to who gets to do the influencing, who gets to influence the narrative. And when your own ideology is being viewed as neutral, you can no longer see yourself doing this. And therefore, the idea in the West of being anti-authoritarian, while at the same time ensuring that the Western liberal ideology is the only valid ideology that can actually do the indoctrinating, that's a very real thing. That means that the conflict here isn't religion versus freedom, it's religion influencing people versus liberalism influencing people while not believing it's actually doing so.
That's where the line, so spirituality, that's all fine to me. And however you want to find meaning and add color to your life experience, you go for it. But we all have to be aware that there are these people out there that are predators and look for people that are young and impressionable and seeking meaning, and they give them false meaning deliberately for money.
And when Professor Dave here, when he warns about predators who exploit vulnerable people and give them a false sense of meaning, he's absolutely right that happens. That there are people, religious and non-religious, who deliberately manipulate others for power, for money, for control. And yes, some people join religious groups looking for belonging, looking for healing, looking for a sense of community, and they may end up believing things which are emotionally comforting but are not actually true. And chances might be that these vulnerable minds are being exploited, and that's a very real phenomenon, and it deserves our attention, it deserves criticism. But we need to make a few clarifications here, because the moment we say the phrase false meaning, we have to ask the obvious question: false according to who? Who gets to decide what counts as true meaning and what counts as false meaning? So this leads to the main criticism of Professor Dave's point, the idea that vulnerable minds are influenced by religion. Now, let me ask you, when we are talking about the idea of selling false meaning, does that apply more to religions, religious ideologies? And of course, an atheist would say that's the case. But really, I'll let you guys ponder over this. What are we talking about? This false sense of meaning, selling a false sense of meaning with malicious intent, selling false meaning. Is that a typical trademark of religion? Or is that a typical characteristic of modern liberal capitalist society? Now, I'll let you ponder over this, because that's actually the very engine of Western consumerism, to be frank. That is, entire industries exist just to sell the idea of meaning, the idea of feeling meaningful. If you buy this, if you dress like this, if you behave like this, then you will have meaning. This is not even something controversial. This is the cycle that many people are in, giving emotional highs with spiritual lows. The endless hedonistic cycle of meaningless stimulation without direction, filling up the spiritual void with temporary sensations which have to be sought again and again, whether online or downtown in the shopping mall, in the shopping center. The idea of selling, I would say, a false sense of meaning is a trademark of Western consumerism and capitalist society. Now, if we're calling that false meaning for profit, then we need to be honest about the fact that countless secular institutions depend right on that exact formula. So the idea that we have to be afraid of religions or religious ideologies exploiting the vulnerable, I would completely agree. Completely. But if that is something which brings you so much concern and the idea of meaning is so dear to you, then you have to be consistent. And here's the deeper issue. If we go with this more superficial definition of meaning, finding meaning in art, in hobbies, in a career, in family even, I would say, what does that have to offer to the orphan? Or to the one who was raised in a war-torn region? Or the one who got bullied, or the one who was disappointed in life, the one who was spiritually and emotionally broken, the mother who lost her family in Sudan or in Palestine, or those who grew up as a street kid in Bangladesh. Telling that meaning is found in music or in art or in a career is not going to cut it. They will feel like they will have a spiritual hunger, and what they crave for is far more existential than this superficial interpretation or this superficial definition of meaning that was being proposed here. So the case is actually, from speaking from an Islamic paradigm, that you can be a failure at life. Yeah, you can be regarded as a failure in life and still be a winner in the eyes of Allah. You could be a street kid in Bangladesh, like I say, who has grown up without parents, who feels abandoned, traumatized, and whose life is a struggle on a daily basis. And you have nothing like music or art or even a family to give you meaning. But still, you can be a winner in the eyes of Allah, in the eyes of your Creator. And that realization for a person is way stronger than any advice could than he could get from a person who tries to convince him that meaning is found in music, in art, in all these earthly matters. So we are not saying do not enjoy that. Enjoy being a professor, enjoy your books, enjoy your movies, enjoy your family, enjoy your career. This is what Allah has given to you. So make the best of it. But the question is, does all that represent true meaning? True meaning. And that, I think, is something that even if you're not religious yourself, but realizing the emptiness and the lack of meaning the modern world is offering you, has to offer, then you have to agree that there's an enormous power coming from that. Even if you yourself don't subscribe to any religion, you cannot deny that the level of meaning and purpose which religion offers to the world cannot be matched by anything secular or liberal. And with that thought, I leave you guys. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.